In a quiet corner of Earth's orbit, there floated a small, forgotten space station. It was old, rusty, and barely alive. Most people didn't even know it still existed. But inside, a single man worked alone. His name was Ethan Cole. He wasn't a soldier, a hero, or a scientist. He was just a mechanic. His job was to check systems, fix satellites, and drink recycled coffee. Day after day, everything was the same, until tonight. As Ethan sat back in his chair, a red light started blinking on his control panel. He frowned and leaned forward. It wasn't a normal alert. It was coming from deep space, far outside the usual range. He tapped the screen. Unidentified signal detected, the system said. Then a voice followed, soft, shaky, and not entirely human. "Help me, please. I need a human." Ethan blinked. A human. That was not something you usually heard in alien signals. Most species in the galaxy didn't trust humans much. Some feared them, others ignored them. But someone somewhere was asking for him. Specifically him. His AI assistant, Juno, spoke. Through the speakers, unauthorized contact with unknown alien species is a Class 5 violation. Ethan sighed. "Yeah, I know, Juno, but listen to that." The message repeated again. Same words, same broken voice, but this time, Ethan noticed something strange. There was emotion in the voice, real fear, maybe even pain. Whoever sent this wasn't just calling for help, they were desperate. He tapped into the signal and ran a quick scan. The data was a mess, like it had passed through black holes and solar storms. But beneath all the static, he found coordinates. They led to an uncharted region of space near a dead star. Juno warned again. "This action may lead to termination of your contract." Ethan rolled his eyes. "It's not like anyone up here cares." He stood up, looked out the window at the black sea of stars. He had always dreamed of doing something bigger. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was his moment. He walked to his personal shuttle. It was old, scratched, and barely held together, but it worked. He loaded the coordinates into the navigation system. The engines roared to life. He smiled, nervous but excited. "Let's find out who's calling." He whispered. As his ship drifted away from the station, the stars began to shift. Then, suddenly, space bent. A portal opened in front of him, a swirling vortex of green and blue energy. His ship was pulled in like a toy. No time to stop, no time to turn. "Juno, what's happening?" "Unknown spatial anomaly detected," she replied. "Yeah, I figured that part," Ethan muttered. The inside of the portal was a tunnel of flashing light and twisted gravity. Ethan gripped the controls, but they didn't respond. The ship was moving on its own, guided by something else, and then everything went dark, seconds later. Or maybe hours' time didn't feel real anymore. Ethan's ship came out the other side. Before him stood something massive, something alive, a biological spaceship. Shaped like a glowing manta ray, it pulsed with soft light and strange patterns across its surface. His ship gently docked without any commands. A ramp opened on the side of the alien vessel. Ethan hesitated, then grabbed his toolkit. He always felt safer holding a wrench. As he stepped inside, the air felt warm. The walls were soft and glowing, like the inside of a living creature. Everything around him pulsed like a slow heartbeat. And in the center of the room, lying on a platform, was her. She looked like a woman, but not quite. Her skin shimmered like silver water. And her eyes were closed. Her breathing was shallow, her body weak. Ethan walked closer, unsure if she was alive. Then her eyes opened bright purple and filled with pain. You answered the call?" she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. "Who are you?" "I am Zara Valari Exile." "They are coming," she said. Her hand reached out and touched his arm. In that instant, a spark of energy passed between them. Ethan stumbled back, his mind flashing with strange images: war, fire, stars exploding. And something else, something darker. "Only a human can stop them," she said weakly. "Why me?" He asked, but Zaira's eyes closed again, and she passed out suddenly. Alarms rang across the alien ship. Red lights flared, and a hologram showed 3 enemy ships approaching. Unknown ships, marked with a symbol and eye with a burning crown. Juno whispered, "Incoming hostiles, weapons armed." Ethan looked at Zaira. Then at the approaching ships. He didn't know who she really was or what danger he was in. But one thing was clear: he had just stepped into something far bigger than he ever imagined. And there was no going back. Ethan stared at the hologram of the enemy ships. Still unsure if this was a dream or a mistake, he had followed a voice. Into deep space answered a message he shouldn't have. And now he stood inside a living alien ship with a strange woman unconscious at his feet. And someone or something was coming to kill them. He rushed to the console nearest him, his fingers flying across strange symbols. The ship responded to his touch like it could feel his thoughts. Doors sealed shut, lights turned red, and the ship began to move. It wasn't running, it was hiding. Ethan didn't know how, but the vessel melted into a nearby asteroid field, cloaking itself in the rocks and shadows. The enemy ships passed overhead like silent predators, scanning, searching, but not finding. After minutes that felt like hours, they were gone, breathing heavily. Ethan turned back to the alien girl. She was still breathing, but just barely. Her silver skin was cold, her body covered in faint glowing lines. He crouched beside her, unsure what to do. "Zaira," he whispered, remembering the name she had. Spoken, she didn't respond. A panel beside the platform lit up, and a soft blue light scanned her body. A voice, soft and feminine, spoke in an alien language. Then slowly shifted into English. "Vital signs critical, psionic core unstable. Link incomplete." Ethan frowned. "What link?" The voice replied, "Valari cannot survive without completing the human psionic bond." He sat back, trying to make sense of it all. She had called herself a Valari exile. He'd heard that name before in whispers, one of the oldest races in the galaxy, secretive, powerful, and dangerous. They never interacted with humans. And now here he was, alone with one of them, hiding from an enemy fleet. He touched her hand again, and her fingers twitched. Images flashed in his mind, fire raining from the sky, cities burning, voices screaming in fear. Then a different image, quiet and strange: Zara, standing in a room of light, surrounded by others, their backs turned on her. Exile, alone, her eyes slowly opened again. Glowing faintly, "You stayed," she whispered. "Didn't have much choice." Ethan replied, "You dragged me here." "No," she said softly, "you chose." To answer, he didn't know how to respond. Maybe she was right. Maybe part of him had been looking for something different, something more. She tried to sit up, but groaned in pain. Ethan quickly helped her, and this time, she didn't push him away. "They're hunting me," she said. "The Threx Dominion wants to control the Valari bond, use it as a weapon." "Why you?" he asked. "Because I refuse to be a tool." Her voice was heavy with emotion. She looked at him, her eyes locking with his. "You're the only one who can help me now." "Why me?" "Because only a human can complete the bond." Ethan didn't understand it, but something deep inside him responded to her words. He wasn't special, not in any way. He was just a mechanic, a nobody floating above Earth. But maybe that's why she had called him, because he had nothing to lose and something to prove. The ship suddenly shuddered, as if waking up from a long sleep. Zaira gasped and clutched her chest. "The bond is forming too quickly," she said. "It's not supposed to happen like this. What do I do?" "Stay with me. Just stay close." He reached out and took her hand again. This time, the connection between them deepened. He felt her thoughts, her fear, her strength, her memories. She wasn't just an alien running from danger. She was someone who had lost everything and still chose to fight. The ship reacted to their bond. Engines powering up on their own, it moved again. This time with purpose. Zaira looked at him and managed a weak smile. The ship knows now. It trusts. You? Because I do. Lights danced across the walls like stars being born. Ethan couldn't explain it, but he felt like he belonged here. Not as a warrior or a hero, but as someone who was finally needed. The voice returned, coordinates set. Escape route activated. Zaira leaned against him, her strength fading fast. "They'll follow us," she whispered. "They'll never." "Stop." Ethan looked out the window as the stars stretched and warped. "Then we won't stop either," he said. "Not until they know what a human is willing to do." And with that, the ship jumped to light speed, carrying them deeper into the unknown. Their journey had just begun. The stars outside the window stretched into long white lines as the ship cut through space. Inside, Ethan sat beside Zaira, watching her sleep. She looked peaceful now, but he knew it was only for a short time. Whatever had begun between them wasn't normal. It wasn't safe. He could still feel the link in his head. Quiet but present, not like words, more like feelings. Whispers of emotion that weren't his. She was inside his mind. And he wasn't sure how he felt about that. But what scared him more was how natural it already felt. He stood and moved through the ship, trying to distract himself. Everything around him was alive. The walls breathed softly, glowing with a light that changed as he walked. It was beautiful and strange, like stepping inside a dream you couldn't wake up from. The ship responded to him now, like it accepted him as part of itself, not because of anything he did, but because Zaira had chosen him. He entered what looked like a command room, though it had no chairs, no screens, just floating shapes, glowing symbols, and strange sounds like whispers from the stars. "Where are we going?" he asked out loud. The ship answered, through a voice that echoed gently in his head. "Unknown system. Last hidden coordinates before final gate. Final gate." He asked, but the ship didn't reply. Behind him, Zaira entered, walking slowly. Leaning against the wall. "You shouldn't be up," Ethan said. Rushing to help her, she gave a small smile. "The bond is stabilizing. I'll be fine." He didn't know what to say. She looked at him with eyes that carried stars and sadness. "There's something I didn't tell you," she said. Ethan waited. "I wasn't just an exile," she whispered. "I was meant to be bonded to a Valari commander. A political move, a forced union." She looked away, ashamed. "But I ran. I destroyed the ritual before it happened, and they came after me because you broke the rules." Ethan asked. "No," she said, "because I proved the rules are wrong." He thought about that for a long second. "And me? Where do I fit into this?" "You're human," she said. "That's what changes everything." Before he could ask more, the ship jolted. Alarms echoed through the halls. Not loud, but urgent. Zaira touched the nearest wall, and a vision appeared. 3 ships, fast and dark, heading toward them through the fold. "Threx warships. They found us," she said, her voice sharp now. Ethan clenched his fists. "Can we run?" She shook her head. "Not fast enough. They've locked on." Ethan moved to the center of the room, standing beneath the floating controls. He didn't understand them, but the ship seemed to guide his movements. He pointed at a glowing pattern, and the ship responded, shields rising like waves of energy. Another symbol flashed, and weapons unfolded from the living hull, sleek and silver like bone. "I thought this was a peaceful ship," he muttered. "It was," Zaira said, "until it bonded with you." The enemy ships opened fire, beams of red energy striking the shields. The ship shook, groaned like a living beast. Ethan braced himself, sweat forming on his brow. Zara moved beside him, touching the ship, closing her eyes. Their link burned hot in his mind suddenly. He saw everything through her vision. The enemy ships, their movements, their weak points. She didn't just see the world, she felt it. And now, so did he. Ready? She whispered. Not even a little, he replied. Together. They moved through the commands like dancers. The ship rolled, dodged, and struck back. Ethan controlled the weapons with his thoughts. Guided by her mind, the first enemy ship exploded. In silence, fire vanishing into the void. The second fell a moment later, its engines pierced by a shot that curved mid-space. The third ship hesitated, then turned and ran. Zaira opened her eyes. Breathing hard, they'll send more, she said. I figured, Ethan said. But hey, we're still alive. The ship slowed, exiting the fold. In front of them stood a massive gate, ancient and broken, floating in the silence of a dead system. It was shaped like a ring of shattered glass, held together by invisible force. Zaire looked at it with quiet awe. The last gate, she whispered, beyond this. Even the Threx can't follow. Then what are we waiting for? Ethan asked. She turned to him, and for the first time, her smile wasn't sad. For you to believe you belong here, he didn't answer, but deep down, a part of him already did. He took the controls and guided the ship toward the gate. It shimmered with strange light, reacting to their presence. As they crossed the threshold, Ethan felt something shift in the stars. Something watching, something waiting. He didn't know what lay ahead. But he knew one thing. He wasn't just part of a story anymore. He was the reason it was still being written. Asterisk, the shattered gate behind them disappeared into the black. Swallowed by space as if it had never existed, Ethan stood at the front of the ship, watching a new part of the galaxy unfold before him. This space was different, colder, older, untouched by war and maps. Here, the stars seemed quieter. But the silence didn't feel safe. Zaira had been resting for hours, but Ethan couldn't sleep. The bond between them had grown stronger during the battle. He felt it now, a faint rhythm in the back of his mind. Her thoughts were shadows, her dreams were colors. They didn't speak. But they shared something no words could explain. He thought of his old life, Firth, the station. The silence of maintenance halls. There, no one noticed him. Here, he was. Part of something that made stars move. It felt insane, but also real. The ship began to slow, drifting toward a small, dark moon floating above a cracked planet. Zaira appeared beside him, calm but serious. This is where we'll find the map. She said. Map to what? Ethan asked. To the core world, the last Valari sanctuary. They landed silently. The ship settling like a feather. The surface of the moon was covered in ruins. Old towers bent under their own weight. Stone and crystal mixed together like bones and light. The air was thin but breathable as they walked. Ethan noticed how the place reacted to Zaire. Lights followed her footsteps, and walls whispered in a language he couldn't understand. She reached the center of the ruins and placed her hand on a tall black monolith. A pulse spread through the ground, and suddenly a hidden platform rose from below. Inside, it was a chamber of memories. Floating crystals showed images of Valari cities. Peace, then war, then her. Zaira standing before a council of glowing figures. She wasn't just an exile. She had defied them publicly. She had chosen to bond with a human. Before they even knew Ethan existed. You planned this? He asked, his voice low. She didn't answer right away. The bond between them trembled. Yes, she said. I didn't know it would be you, but I knew it had to be someone like you. He stepped back, the weight of her words pressing into his chest. So I was just a tool? No, she said quickly. Stepping closer, you were hope. before he could respond. The ground shook. Outside, shadows moved, dark figures dropping silently from the sky. Threk soldiers, cloaked in black armor, their weapons. Humming with quiet death, Zyra's eyes widened. They tracked the bond. "We have to leave," Ethan said, grabbing her arm. But it was too late. A blast threw them both to the ground. Ethan rolled over, coughing. Blood on his lip, Zyra tried to rise, but a Threk's commander appeared beside her. He moved faster than anything Ethan had ever seen. A strike, a flash, and Zyra collapsed, unconscious. Ethan screamed and lunged, but was slammed into the wall by a shockwave. Darkness rushed in, cold and absolute. He woke inside a metal prison, nothing like Zaire's living ship. This place was sharp, cruel, and silent. His wrists were bound and a cross. The room, through a glass wall, he saw her Zaire suspended in a tank of glowing liquid. Unconscious, her mind still faint in his own. A voice echoed overhead, deep and mocking. "You must be the human she chose." It said, "You don't look like much." A Threk's general stepped into view, his armor gold and black, his face hidden. Beneath a glass mask, to think a Valari royal would run into the arms of a human. Ethan didn't answer. The general continued. "The bond between you is dangerous, unpredictable, and ours." Ethan felt the bond weaken. They were draining her, pulling the energy from their connection like fuel. "She'll die," Ethan said. The general tilted his head. "No, human. She'll become a weapon." The lights dimmed, and the room filled with a soft hum. Machines activated around Zaira. Ethan's heart pounded. He could feel her pain, distant but real. He had no weapons, no allies, and no plan. But he wasn't going to sit and watch her die, not after everything. The bond flickered once more, just enough to send one thought through. "I'm not done." Ethan closed his eyes and focused. He didn't know how the link worked, but he didn't care. He reached into it, into her mind, and pulled the glass. Wall cracked, energy surged through his restraints. The guards outside turned too late. A psychic blast burst from the cell. Throwing them into the walls like paper, Ethan collapsed again, smoke rising from his skin. He wasn't built for this, but it didn't matter. He had broken through, and he was coming for her. The prison lights flickered overhead as Ethan pulled himself up from the ground. Smoke drifted from the shattered cell door, sparks bursting from the damaged walls. His skin still tingled from the energy burst, and his hands shook, but he didn't stop. Every part of his body screamed in pain, but the bond pulled him forward. Zyra was still alive, barely, but alive. He moved through the hallways, silent and focused. The Threk station was massive, carved into the hollow core of a dead asteroid. Cold steel floors, red surveillance lights, walls that seemed to hum with danger. No maps, no clues, just a single thread inside his mind. Her presence, growing fainter with every step. A guard turned the corner. Ethan ducked into the shadows, breathing through his teeth. He had no weapons, just his instincts and a stolen access card he'd grabbed off the last body. He waited, counted the steps, then moved, fast, silent, brutal. A wrench to the neck, a thud, then silence. He took the guard's shock baton and moved on. No alarms yet, but that wouldn't last. Zaira was being held in the core chamber, somewhere below, where the Threks fed off her mind like fuel. She had told him once Valari energy was pure, clean, powerful, but only when freely given. Now, she was a battery, a slave, and they were burning her soul to keep their systems alive. He reached an elevator shaft and forced the doors open. No time for waiting. He climbed down, using cables and broken ladders, his muscles aching with every pull. Below him, the hum grew louder, deeper, like the heartbeat of something dying. Finally, he dropped into a narrow corridor, glowing with dull red light. At the end stood a single door, sealed, guarded by 2 elite Threx soldiers. They didn't look surprised to see him. They had been waiting. Ethan didn't hesitate. He charged. Ducking low as one fired a plasma bolt, he rolled, brought the baton up, struck one across the jaw. The second soldier blocked his hit, countered with a punch that knocked Ethan back. Blood filled his mouth. His ears rang. He stood again anyway. This time, the bond flared Zara's energy rushing through him like fire. He didn't understand it, but he didn't have to. His swing moved faster, his body lighter, his focus crystal clear. He moved like someone else was guiding him. One guard fell, then the other. The door opened, sensing the bond's presence. Ethan stepped inside. The chamber was dark, filled with cables and tubes glowing with violet light. In the center, suspended in the air like a ghost, was Zaira. Her eyes were closed. Her body limp, thin wires feeding from her skin into a massive crystal at the back of the room. Machines hissed and clicked, draining her thoughts into data. The general stood nearby, arms behind his back. He didn't turn. "I wondered how long you'd last," he said calmly. Ethan walked forward, slowly. "I'm not here to talk." "No, of course not." The general replied, "You came to die." He turned now, and for the first time, Ethan saw his face. It wasn't a monster. It was human. The man removed his mask, revealing a scarred face with tired eyes. "I was like you once," he said. A human caught in the middle of something larger, something ancient. Ethan stared, unsure whether to feel shock or rage. "You betrayed your own kind." "No," the general said. "I survived them. The Valari used me, promised me purpose, then cast me aside. So you sided with the Threx." "I built the Threx," the man said quietly, "from inside the ruins they left behind." Ethan looked at Zaira, her light dimming by the second. He didn't care about speeches or betrayals or ancient wars. He cared about one thing: saving her. The general raised his hand, calling for the security AI to target Ethan. But the bond moved again, not just through Ethan, but through the room itself. Zaira's mind pulsed, reacting to Ethan's presence. The cables snapped. The machine sparked. Her eyes opened, the air vibrated, and the general stepped back. "You're too late," he whispered. "She's unstable. You'll both die." Zaira floated down, her body glowing, energy swirling around her. She landed beside Ethan, weak but standing. "I told you I'd be back," said. Smiling through blood, she reached for him. And the moment their hands touched, the chamber exploded with light. Not fire, not heat, just pure force. The general was thrown against the wall, crushed by the wave of power. Machines melted, alarms screamed. The bond was complete. Zira collapsed into Ethan's arms. Breathing heavily. "Not done yet," she whispered. He held her close. "No," he said. "We're just getting started." Behind them, the station began to collapse. Ethan carried her through falling walls, burning hallways. He found an escape pod, old but functional. They launched into the dark, leaving the Threx fortress to die in silence. Inside the pod, Zaira rested her head against his shoulder. "I saw your memories," she whispered. "Your loneliness, your hope, your fire." He nodded. "I saw yours too." Outside, the stars waited, endless and new. Ethan didn't know where they'd go next, but for the first time in his life, he wasn't lost, he was chosen. The stars had never looked this quiet before. The escape pod floated through deep space like a speck of dust drifting across a black ocean. Inside, Ethan watched over Zaira as she slept, her breathing slow, her light dim but steady. They had escaped the Threx, but something heavier waited ahead, something older, colder, and much more dangerous. The coordinates Zaira had given the ship earlier were locked in. They were heading to the core world, the last sanctuary of the Valari, no human had ever been. There, few even knew it existed, as the ship crossed the threshold of a nebula that looked like a swirling silver storm. Space itself seemed to change. The stars moved slower. Time bent slightly, and even thought felt heavier. Zaire finally opened her eyes and whispered, "We're close." Ethan looked at her. Still unsure what kind of place would accept someone like her and deny someone like him. She seemed calm, but inside the bond, Ethan felt her fear, not of death. Not of war but of home. When the core world appeared, it wasn't what he expected. It wasn't made of towers or technology or floating cities. It was a single planet wrapped in rings of crystal, glowing with colors that didn't exist on any spectrum. The planet breathed, not literally, but its presence pulsed like a living thought. As they descended into the atmosphere, a massive structure rose to greet them. It wasn't a palace, it was a mind. Thousands of Alari were connected to it. A collective consciousness, ancient and watchful. Ethan stepped out of the pod and immediately felt it press against his thoughts. Zaire stepped forward, leading him to a platform made of light. They were lifted into the heart of the structure. The Valari High Council waited not with robes or faces, but as floating forms of light and memory. They spoke directly into his mind, their voices layered. "You bring the human." Zaira stood tall. Though her legs trembled, "I bring my bond," she said, "and my choice, you disobeyed." The council said, "You abandoned tradition. You merged with something chaotic." "He is not chaos," she replied. "He is clarity." The chamber grew cold. Ethan stepped forward, unsure whether to speak, but the bond guided him. He looked up at the lights. "I didn't ask for this," he said, "but I answered anyway. Because someone needed help. That is not reason." "Enough," they replied. "No," Ethan said, "but staying, fighting. Saving her when I had nothing to gain. That's reason enough." The silence was thick. Then one of the lights dimmed. An elder voice spoke, older than the others. "We have seen your memory, human, your loneliness, your doubts, your fire. We have also seen the war you carry, the damage of your kind." Zaira interrupted. "Every species carries violence, but humans carry something more. They protect without promise. They fight without reward, and they bond with hearts." "Open." The council paused. Then another voice asked, "Would you die for her?" Ethan didn't blink. Yes, the lights shifted again. A portal opened behind them, swirling with darkness. "The Threx come," the council said. "They followed your bond, then help us fight," Zaira said. The lights dimmed. "No," they replied. "We do not interfere." Zari turned away from them, furious. "They will burn the stars," she said. "And you will hide in your sanctuary of silence." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we go," he said, "even if it's just us." As they turned to leave, one of the youngest voices among the council whispered into their minds. "There is a place," it said, "a hidden armory built before memory. Only a bonded pair may enter it." They looked at each other without speaking. They understood. They had been rejected, but not defeated. They returned to the pod, the world behind them fading like a forgotten song in the silence of space. The bond between them glowed brighter. Not because they were chosen, but because they chose each other. The new coordinates appeared on the ship's controls, a hidden place, ancient, lost, and waiting. Zaire looked at Ethan. "This is the part where most would give up," he smirked. Wiping blood from his lip, "Yeah, well, I'm not most." And the ship vanished into the dark, toward a weapon that could change the galaxy or destroy it. The ship fell silent as it approached the forgotten place. No beacons, no stations, no defenses, just a drifting asteroid that pulsed with strange energy from the outside. It looked dead. But Zaira knew better. Buried beneath the rock was the last Valari armory, locked for centuries. Waiting for a bonded pair strong enough to awaken it, Ethan stood at the ship's window, staring out at the stars. He didn't feel like the same man who once floated above Earth fixing broken satellites. He had bled, fought, and almost died for someone he didn't know a few days ago. Now, she was in his soul. Her heart beat like a quiet drum inside his own. Zyra came beside him, quiet, thoughtful. "Are you afraid?" She asked. He didn't lie. "Yes, me too," she said, and reached for his hand when they touched. The ship responded, descending slowly into the asteroid's core. The inside was vast, glowing with lines of light that flickered like memories. They walked through a tunnel shaped by thought and power. Finally, they reached the chamber, a round room with floating shards of crystal spinning in silence. In the center was a pedestal. Shaped like two joined hands, Zyra stepped forward. "The armory can't be activated with weapons or passwords," she said, "only with truth." "What kind of truth?" Ethan asked. "Your truth," she whispered. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the pedestal. Zyra did the same. The crystals above began to spin faster, the room filling with light. Images appeared, Zyra's memories, Ethan's childhood. Moments of pain, choices made, lives changed. The bond between them burned bright, pulsing like a living star. Then the weapon revealed itself, but it wasn't a gun or a bomb. It was choice. The chamber gave them two paths. One would amplify their bond into a wave strong enough to disable every Threx ship in the sector. But it would drain Ethan's life completely. The other would allow them to escape, to survive together, but let the war continue. Zyra looked at him, her eyes wide with fear. "You can't," she said. "I won't let you," Ethan smiled, soft and tired. "You didn't choose me to run." She grabbed him, shaking her head. There must be another way, but there wasn't. The armory was ancient, and its power came with cost. He kissed her forehead, one last spark of warmth between them. "I'm just a mechanic, remember?" He whispered. No one would do this for an alien girl except a human. She tried to hold on, but the chamber responded, lifting him into the light. Zyra screamed, her voice echoing through the asteroid, but Ethan didn't flinch. He let go, and the bond exploded into the stars. Across the galaxy, Threx ships froze mid-space, weapons dead, engines silent. The wave pulsed through systems, through machines, through minds, not killing, not destroying, but reminding. This is what one human did, alone, with nothing but choice. When the light faded, Ethan was gone. Zyra fell to her knees, her body shaking, her heart broken, but inside her, something remained. The bond didn't vanish. It became seed, a legacy of thought and courage that would live in her forever. The Valari heard the signal. This time, they did not hide. The Threx fell, not by war but by unity. Zyra became a symbol, not of exile, but of change. She carried Ethan's memory across star systems, told his story on planets that never knew Earth existed. Years passed, and one day, in a quiet orbit above a new world, a small ship landed. A boy stepped out, half human, half Valari. He looked at the stars and smiled. Somewhere far beyond the known galaxy, a new signal pulsed, not a cry for help, but a message of hope. "This is what humanity is," it said. "We don't run, we don't rule, we reach." And that's how a single human changed the future. Not with war, but with a decision. Not with power, but with heart.